off limits. We want to answer your questions about business, life, and everything in between. Send your questions to ask@beckandliz.com. That's ask@beckandliz.com. I have a question for you,
What
Elizabeth.
is it?
Do you think people can change?
Do I think people can change? That's such an interesting question. Because so many people want to just give themselves the excuse, well, this is the way I am. We talked about that in Claire Moore's segment. So I have to say, yes, I think people can change, because to think otherwise is hopeless, number one. It doesn't leave the possibility for evolution of thought or position or anything. And I think that would be sad. And I think a lot of who we are is what we choose to look at and learn and perceive and how we choose to grow forward. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. I don't think God is through with us. I think we're always evolving and changing. It's the old argument that's been going on for centuries, the nurture versus nature kind of argument. Are we born a particular way, or are we kind of formed? Our ideas and our gifts, are they formed based on our environment and how we were nurtured, and situations that come up that allows us to discover more parts of ourselves? And I think it's both. I think it's both, that we do come in with certain natural tendencies, but I think we change, and all I can say is thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness that we can learn from one another. We can make mistakes and correct them. We can get another opinion about something, and that's particularly important today in our political climate. And that is, it's okay to keep learning and to look at other opinions and ideas. It allows us to continue to evolve and become more of what we were designed to be, which is, of course, the full expression of ourselves. And I don't think we are that at birth. I think we become that over time, if we allow ourselves to learn and grow and evolve and be challenged, and to question even our own thoughts and our own feelings.
Well, and if you look at it in the reverse, I was just talking about this actually with my daughter the other day, how easy it is to screw up a kid, right? By the way you treat them, behave them, abuse them, love them, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many easy ways to really destroy someone, their
Right.
confidence, their boldness, their fear. So if you can affect someone in that way, and then how could it all be just they were born that this is who I am? And then a child who can overcome that, to move past hurt and anger and all those things, you've got to have the hope for that change, for that ability to do that. So I think when you look at so many situations of our lives form us, and we have free will. I think you have to recognize that. Dawn and I always say free will sucks when you have 5 kids, because everybody's making decisions that you may or may not agree with. And sometimes we're just, especially in those younger teen years when we had them all, we had 4 teenagers at one time for a bit. And I was like, we were constantly going around saying free will sucks. So I think, and then they grow and learn from it, and, become much more tolerable people.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much that plays into it. And to say this is just who I am or the way that I am, to me, is such an excuse.
It's an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's an excuse that says, I'm not willing to learn. I'm not willing to change. I'm not willing to address the situation differently, even though it's not working the way that I'm doing. When we tell another human being, sorry, it's just who I am, you're going to have to tolerate it, I think it's an excuse to not evolve and take personal responsibility. You have to ask yourself, is it working? Right? Is it working? If the answer is no, then what within me do I need to change or learn to have things work better in my life?
Well, and I think in our divisive climate right now, one of the things that I have learned to ask people who disagree with me a lot to get to some sort of commonality is, I really want to know, tell me your story, tell me your experience, because people most of the time
Mm-hmm.
have a reason for the way they feel or believe, whether it was from a religious perspective or from a personal experience, or I had this kind of poverty as a child and so I believe these things, or I had been discriminated against and here's my story. But if you get to the root of why someone believes something, it's much easier to find common ground and to have a conversation that's not inflammatory or accusatory. And I think when you can get to that really deep base level and genuinely want to know, I mean, sometimes you have to break down the wall because they're thinking you have some motive.
Right.
If you're genuinely trying to understand what it is that brought you to that idea, or point of view, then there's somewhere to grow from.
Well, and it shows some empathy and
Mhm.
some compassion, even if you ultimately still choose to disagree. It shows that you're trying to understand and you're trying to be empathetic. Neurologically, a belief is a heightened emotion, usually from a traumatic situation or something of that nature. It's a heightened emotion combined with a decision. That's what creates neurologically a belief. So many of these strongly held beliefs that each of us has came from some kind of emotion. Now, granted, some other beliefs come in different ways, but many of our stubborn beliefs that this is the way it is and there's no other way to look at it comes from, like you said, an experience, a history, something that happened that led them to adopt that particular belief.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, those are not easy conversations, especially because both sides have emotion attached to their beliefs. So being able to kind of tamp those down in order to get to the root of it or the root of understanding it.
Right.
Even if you end up disagreeing, if I have if I understand why, that it's not just some willy-nilly, I don't care about you, I'm not going to listen to you thing, then you can at least part friends.
Right. Or understanding one another better, for
Yeah.
sure. A little seed has been planted that says, maybe I'm not the center of the universe, and maybe I don't have all the answers, and maybe there's some gray area between the black and the white, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep. Not
Yes,
easy though.
yes, and more.
Sometimes you might need to have wine while you have that conversation.
Yes, that never hurts.
Just a suggestion.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you everyone for joining Liz and I today, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. This is Beck and Liz signing off and wishing you another purpose filled and profitable week.